Hi, I'm Mike Litton, and this is your market update. So we have some new numbers in that are actually our year-over-year numbers. So new listings year-over-year were up 8% and up 8%. Closed sales were down 10.9%. That's because of a spike in interest rates. We'll talk about that here in a few minutes. But median sales price is up 12.1% at 1050. Average sales price is up 7.2%. Percentage of price received is up 2.1% to 100.7%. So if you have $1 million listing, you're getting over $1 million for that property. Housing affordability is down 13.3%, again, because of interest rates, which we'll talk about in a minute. Months of supply is up 15.4% to 1.5 months. Please remember that a seller's market is more than 6 months of inventory, buyer's market is more than 6 months of inventory. A balanced market is 3 months of inventory. We're at 1.5. We're still in a seller's market, hot seller's market. In fact, I just put a listing on the market last week, sold it in less than 6 days for $50,000 above ask. So not bad. This is if you remember, this is the 50-year graph for interest rates. That's 30-year fixed rates, right? There's the last year. And then this is the most recent. So you see that graph? That's the last 6 months. So you see the spike up here and you see it drop and then you see it kind of ticking back up. Well, it's currently at 7.38%. The 30-year fixed rate is actually in the low sixes. So we're looking at 6.25 right now for a 30-year fixed rate with an APR of just over 6.5, so 6.52. So that's where we are with that. Also, this is the weekly snapshot numbers. So look at the number of properties on the market. 3,580 homes on the market. That's up 11.7%. So that means the inventory that buyers have to try to pick from is actually up 11.7%. That's really good. Also, new listings are up 6.5%. Again, increase in inventory, right? And pendings are down 4.53%. So we're actually selling less and we're accumulating more inventory. That's because of the interest rate spike that you saw. Interest rates are up about 0.5% average, annual average from what we had before. So look at the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Survey. This is insane, you guys. Year over year, up 22.3% for the sentiment index, okay? Up 15.8% for the current conditions index, and up 27% for expectations. Up 27.1%. That's one of the best rates in decades for the University of Michigan's consumer sentiment. So what that tells you is the consumer is looking forward. They're looking into the future, and what they're seeing in the future, they definitely like. They're definitely bullish on what's coming. So there definitely are some expectations out there that things are improving and going to improve. So the Fed and long-term interest rates, we've talked about this, they are now considering what they're going to do. The Federal Open Market Committee is now considering what they're going to do with what they call their balance sheet reduction program. So remember, balance sheet controls 15, 20-year, and 30-year fixed rates. So 15-year, 20-year, and 30-year fixed rates are what the market keys on in terms of the purchase market for buyers. Most buyers stay with that type of fixed product. The Federal Open Market Committee is currently considering potentially starting to buy more bonds, which would mean that they're doing more quantitative easing, which means that they would be driving the price of bonds up. They would be driving the yield down. So something to think about in terms of what's coming potentially in the future and how that could be very bullish for real estate. There's the balance. This balance is still 7.5 trillion. We talked about being solution-based. By the way, I was just recently asked to be on a program that I'm going to be on because I was solution-based in my answers to some of the questions that this host had. They invited me to be on another program because I'm one of the only ones that's out there in the marketplace that actually is solution-based when it comes to the market. Anybody can complain about the market. We're not necessarily going to get anywhere if all we do is just sit around and complain. What I'm looking to do is add value to you and give you some solutions so that you can figure out different ways to make this work. So we're actually going to be doing an episode on Lab Coat Agents about what first-time home buyers can do today to try to afford to buy into this current market. So the market's a little tough, it's a little challenging, but it's always challenging to an extent for first-time home buyers. And so what we're doing is we're going over some solution-based scenarios that people can implement that can help them get into the market if in fact they're looking to buy a house. So Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, we talked about the 5% down with the 2 to 4 units, phenomenal product. Okay, sorry about the podcast for just a second. The podcast is the Mike Litton Experience. We literally just this morning broke 172,000 listens. Thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of our heart, bottom of my heart and our heart for all your support. I really, really appreciate it. Also, wanted to talk about something real quick. Let's talk about this NAR settlement. Everybody seems to be talking about it. Sellers have questions about it. Buyers have questions about it. Realtors have questions about it. Everybody seems to have questions. Let's talk about what it is. What the NAR settlement does is it requires that MLSs, this is a proposed settlement, it's not settled yet, but if the judge approves it, it's going to require that the actual co-op percentage that's offered to the buyer's broker is actually not going to be published in the MLS anymore. So it won't be shown, number one. Number two, they're going to have to disclose it. So it's going to have to be disclosed to the buyer what they're being paid. So the way this works, if you haven't sold a house in a while, or if you're curious about how this works, the listing agreement has a gross commission to it. So let's say for the sake of example that it's 6%. At 6%, what I do as the listing broker is I'll share half of that, right? I'll share half of that 6% with the co-op broker. Why? Well, according to the National Association of Realtors, 86% of all transactions closed in the United States are co-op transactions. So let me ask you a question. If you're a seller, and even if you're a buyer, and even if you're a realtor, right? Should you take good care of the co-op broker? Should you take good care of the co-op agent? Because they are in 8.6% out of, or 8.6 times out of 10, they're bringing the buyer that's actually buying that property. So when you have a statistic like that, you need to work with what you have in terms of data, right? And the best thing you can do is take the best, especially as a listing broker, the best thing you can do is take the best care of those co-op agents as you possibly can. And what I mean by that is, it is true as a listing broker that we are going to negotiate on behalf of our seller. We should. We work for you. The buyer's broker, okay, what we call the selling agent in the industry vernacular, there's a listing agent, which would be me, and then the selling agent, which would be the 86% of the time would be somebody that brings the buyer from a different brokerage. We're going to take good care of them. The reason we're going to take good care of them is they're what we call a market mover. They make our market. In other words, we're not selling real estate without those agents, without those brokers. So we need to take good care of them. And so one of the things that's going to happen if the settlement's approved is they're going to require that a buyer-broker agreement be executed between the buyer's broker and the buyer themselves. And it's going to delineate exactly what that co-op commission is, whatever that number is. It's delineated in the listing agreement, so it's in the listing agreement when the property is put on the market. It's just not going to be published in the MLS anymore. And so it'll have to be required, it's required in this settlement, if it's approved, that the buyer's broker has to execute what's called a buyer-broker agreement or buyer representation agreement. And that representation agreement has to delineate what they're going to be paid. So it's completely open, it's completely upfront, which is exactly the way most of us have been operating from day one. I've been doing this for 32 years. We've been operating with buyer-broker agreements for 3 decades. So it's not something that's foreign to us, but it is foreign to some people in the industry, and they're just going to have to get used to it. So one of the things we're doing right now is I'm being called on by a lot of different podcasts and different mastery programs and that type of thing to help teach realtors what they can do and how they can go about communicating the importance and the requirement of that buyer-broker agreement. So that's one of the things we're working on right now is we're working on getting the industry prepared for you should you decide anytime in the near future to sell your house. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. You can reach me anywhere. You can call me, obviously. You can text me. Probably be best to text first. You can also email me. You can also meet with me if you want to go to calendly.com/REO760. Happy to meet with you. No obligation, no anything. Just I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. There are no questions that you cannot ask. And one other thing, I just had a conversation with a client the other day that I literally have been working with you guys for 26 years. And that client asked me, they said, hey, do you know that we worked together 26 plus years, almost 27 years ago? And I said, yeah, it's one of the highlights of my life is working with you guys and having this relationship with you that's lasted this long. After we work together, if you choose to work with me, I don't go away after we close escrow. In fact, after we close escrow is kind of when some of the work starts. So one of the things that I want you to understand is if you work with us, with me and with my team, we don't disappear after the close of escrow. You're going to be able to get us just like you did while we're in escrow and just like you did before. So I hope this helps. If you have any questions, let me know. I hope you have an amazing week and we'll see you soon.